What's cooking, everybody? It's Monday, October 28th. Things are getting spooky, and this is the Poor Couples Food Guide Deep Dish Podcast, where we do a deep dive on all your favorite foods. I'm your host, Poor Couples Food Guide Erik, aka The Goose, aka All Might, and with me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Poor Couples Food Guide Meg, aka Lay Skunk, aka Scarecrow.
Hello.
And together, we are the Halloween couple who is getting ready for a spooktacular weekend. Halloween is in a couple of days, so we hope you're hungry for some tasty knowledge facts, because today your main course is going to be some peanut butter cups. So let's get started with the appetizers. So no, I'm not actually All Might. She's not actually a scarecrow, but that's going to be...
am I? Dum dum dum.
No.
Oh, okay.
Unless you haven't told me this, like all the years we've been together. But yeah, I'm going to be All Might for Halloween. She's going to be a scarecrow for Halloween. And as you can see here, Charlie is going to be a prisoner because...
He's a little camera shy, though.
I don't think he's camera shy so much as he's just very uncomfortable, and he's sitting on a chair that is really not designed for a dog to sit on. We'll see how long he lasts on there, because I don't think he's having fun. Charlie, here, put your face right there. He doesn't know what to do. We gave him a coaster, and
Could be as like a substitute pillow.
yeah, well, we'll see what he does. But yeah, so we got one Halloween party we're going to this year, and it's going to be a socially distant, responsible Halloween party.
All outside.
It'll be outside. There's going to be karaoke. There's going to be probably fireworks. Let's be real. Our friend likes fireworks. There's fireworks. There's a 90% chance there's going to be fireworks at any party that he hosts. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. Plus, even besides parties, like it's just fun to go out into town and just dress up in your costume and just roam around, because, I don't know, everyone's in costume. Halloween's cool because it's not just, like, for little kids anymore.
Yeah, I really liked, in college, like, going to school on Halloween, because there's just the perfect mix of, like, people in costume and people not in costume.
Yeah.
So you just be walking around, see, like, most normal people in just, like, jackets or, like, their sweatshirts or whatever, and then you just see, like, I don't know, like, a skeleton.
Yeah, or some guys
like,
walking around as Goku,
yeah,
Super Mario or something. Yeah, I mean, that's how it is here in Patchogue now, though. In, like, a lot of places, a lot of downtown areas here, people just, they, like, I don't know. They, like, we're not the odd ones out, fortunately.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people, they just are like, oh, it's Halloween. Like, let's walk around in public with a costume on, because that's fun. Why wouldn't you? Like, I guess, I mean, it's that same mentality you hear people that just, like, are legitimately annoyed at, like, oh, Halloween used to be just for kids. You see adults and have parties and the world was coming. It's just like the kind of, like, I don't know, the kind of assholes that would, like, go to a grocery store and be bothered that, like, the cashier, who has nothing to do, is on their cell phone. But what other, like, what costumes have we done that, like, I don't know, that stick out in our mind? Our first year together, we did Gomez and Morticia Addams.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Big fans of the Addams family. We did a good job on it, too.
That's the only couples costume we've ever done, though.
Yeah, because couples costumes are tricky because, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people who normally would have, like, cool costumes would be, I don't know, they do a couples costume and it ends up just, like, really lame. I don't know. Oh no, Charlie's getting his own pillow now.
I might let him stay on.
Maybe.
Sorry, you could have kept going. Only people watching YouTube would have known
that's
something was happening.
not too distracting to have a dog and a pillow flying around, but...
See, he's already more comfortable.
All right, fine. He's much more comfortable.
Anyway, back to costumes.
Back to costumes, yeah. A lot of people that do couples costumes, I feel like it comes out very cop-out-y, because I feel like people who would normally do a cool costume, they end up falling into that. Especially when... Okay, there's two types of couples costumes. There are couples costumes where it's like characters or like just two costumes that happen to go together really well, like Morticia and Gomez, or maybe Mario and Luigi, or like a hamburger and a hot dog, stuff like that. But then there's the lazy, really stupid couples costumes.
It was like, oh, we're just both hippies.
Yeah, we're both hippies, or like we're both dressed up as, I don't know, we both are dressed up as dinosaurs. I bet you guys have never seen those giant air pump dinosaur costumes. Ugh, so glad that those things are finally starting to wane in popularity, because those things, like, that was funny for approximately 18 seconds the first time you ever saw it. It was like, ha, 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 whoa, that's crazy. That's a big dinosaur costume, and it's, like, filled with air, and then you just kind of get over it, and then everyone else kept doing it, and it was fucking stupid. I did last year. I really liked my costume last year. I went as the chainsaw guy from Resident Evil.
Yeah.
It's like he's got the bag over his head. I actually sewed together like a burlap sack and like cut it out and fucking blood everywhere and borrowed my friend's fake chainsaw. That was a good costume.
Yeah. I liked my voodoo doll costume from a couple years ago.
That was a good costume too. It was cute, but it was creepy.
Yeah. I feel like I wasted my Nabbit costume too soon because it would have been perfect for this year because I had the mask with like the face on it and everything. Like I would have been perfectly covered in for coronavirus.
Yeah. Mario's hot this year too because of I think the 35th anniversary. So, but we had a couple of kids at a party recognize you as Nabbit.
Yeah.
That was fun when we went that year. I did similarly, not to just rattle off Resident Evil costumes, but I went as the merchant from Resident Evil 4 maybe 8 years ago, and that was probably one of the best costumes I ever did because it was just like perfect. Like my mother had like a cloak coat thing that I had the bandana. I like got a bunch of boxes that looked like bullet boxes and like a gun, and I borrowed a bandolier, like a Nerf gun bandolier from a friend, and it was just like flawless. It looked perfect. Man,
most comfortable costume for me would be my skunk costume because I still wear the hoodie like I just wore it when I was walking Charlie before.
Yeah, you made it too, which is very impressive. That's fun, because like you wear it and like you see people with like those like animal hood like hats, like winter hats with like the ears and stuff that come down. And like, I don't know, like yours is a similar concept, but it's a hoodie. But like you made that, so that's really cool because you're crafty and you're awesome.
Thanks.
But yeah, basically it was pajamas when you wore it. It was just a soft hoodie and like black velvet pants or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, that was a cute costume. Everybody liked that costume. So I'm trying to think, like back when I was a kid, I don't think I had any really standout costumes. I remember the earliest costume I can remember doing when I was a kid was I went as Batman when I was like 4 or 5, I think. And all I remember from that costume was that I had like the mask. It was just like, it was like a plastic, like rigid plastic, or no, not rigid, but like soft, but like, you know the material where it's like soft, but it's still molded. So like it was that. It was like it wasn't like a cheap one. It wasn't chintzy, but it was like this thick plastic Batman mask that went over my face. And all I can remember is just like from breathing condensation, just got so wet inside, and I was just like, and I was like 5 years old, so like kids are disgusting. So
I'm sure that's great for her with asthma too.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the earliest costume I can remember. What's the earliest one you can remember?
That I remember?
Yeah, that you remember. Or you know of.
Well, the first one I know of from pictures was like a devil. So my parents just got me like a little like devil outfit thing. The first one I remember like coming up with on my own was Ballerina Cat. I don't know why.
Ballerina Cat.
Yeah, like I don't know why.
Sure. Creative costumes. Original costumes are better than just like when people go out and they're like, here's $75, and they're like, okay, here's your full costume kit that looks pretty good.
I'm pretty sure I was also a rabbit, one of the early, like a pink rabbit early on. The thing I'm most mad about is that I never was Dorothy from Wizard of Oz when we had Nellie, our current terrier, who could have just been Toto. Like, I don't know why. I never did that. I'm very, like, mad at past me for not doing that.
So, you can sort of make up for it next year. Not really, but, like, what we'll do with Charlie, you can make up for it with Charlie's costume.
Dye him black.
No, I was going to say so Charlie's a Westie, so we are going to get him a cardboard cutout of the Caesar dog food, like the Westie and the Caesar dog food commercials, and the dog's head is on the package, so we're just going to get a square and just like print it out or paint it so it looks like the actual dog food container. And
stick his head through.
So
I'm sure he'll love that.
Yeah, I'm sure, because he's like really he's already miserable and went to bed because of the prisoner outfit. So I think one of the dumbest ideas I had for a costume once was, I think my parents got a refrigerator around the time of Halloween, so I was just like, I'm just gonna be a refrigerator box. So I took a refrigerator box, cut holes for arms, and then like eye holes, and like to be fair, as stupid as it was, I actually came up with a really smart idea, which is I like attached the candy bag, my like pillowcase, I attached it into the inside of the box. So I just like got the candy and just pulled it into my arms into like this fucking like cardboard robot square that I was in and just dumped it in there and I had it there. I didn't have to carry it. So although I did get egged by some fucking kids in the woods, which to be fair, if you're some stupid shitty teenager with eggs and you see a giant fucking box slowly walking down the street, how could you not egg that? Oh man. What other cool... I was a Professor Oak a couple years ago. That was a cool costume.
Oh, wait, that was almost a couple's costume. Because you were Professor Oak and I was Professor Juniper.
Yeah, so we were both Pokemon professors. Yeah. That was fun. One year, it's very poignant this year, but one year, like maybe like 10 years ago, I went as like a secret agent in like a plague or zombie apocalypse. Because I just took like... I got like a jacket and a suit from like Goodwill or something, and I just tore it up, put blood all over it, and then wore sunglasses and like slicked my hair back, and I wore like an N95 mask, and it looked really friggin' cool.
And where's that N95 mask now? We could use that.
I don't know. Honestly, it might be in the back of my car somewhere for all I know. Yeah, that was a cool costume.
What's the last year you went trick-or-treating?
Ooh, I went
like real trick-or-treating, not when we go to Allison and Bob's.
I went through all high school. My last year was 12th grade. I went with my friends like Molly and Tom. And yeah, we were like 18-ass-year-olds and we fucking got a bunch of candy and it was awesome. If we could get away with it, I would still go trick-or-treating today.
Yeah.
Or Saturday, not today. You know what I mean?
My last year, I think, was 10th grade. And then after that, switched to parties.
See, that's weird because I didn't switch to parties until college when I started getting invited by my like older friends. Like all through grade school though, like we just had like trick-or-treating. It was fun. So I don't know. Halloween parties are fun though. I'm glad they're a thing now. So, but I guess that's as much as we should talk about because even though this is a Halloween edition, we do still have a main topic that we're going to discuss. So, without further ado, I present to all of you today's main course. Peanut butter cups are a candy treat that consists of a small chocolate cup filled with peanut butter, hence the term peanut butter cup. Generally speaking, we usually see these confections in either like specialty chocolate shops, and you could certainly make them at home, but honestly, the most common form that we see them is, Reese's peanut butter cups at stores.
Do we really need to spend much time here? Is there a single person on the face of Earth who hasn't had a Reese's peanut butter cup? I mean, come on. Even people with peanut allergies have had at least one. Like, yeah, it might kill you, but hey, don't knock until you try it. There's EpiPens.
Of course. But, side note, don't knock till you try it is not official medical terminology. Like, Poor Couple's Food Guide cannot be held liable if you try ingesting arsenic under the mantra of don't knock it until you try it. Thank you.
Over the years, we've seen very little variation on the peanut butter cup. Reese's seems to have the monopoly on it, but other companies have tried their hand as well, to varying success. There's just something about their peanut butter that makes it so satisfying that no one can really recreate.
Yeah, ironically, I feel like Reese's, like, I'm pretty sure they released their peanut butter, like, on its own in a jar, but, like, from what I remember, like, it kind of sucked, because I remember having it once, and just, like, I don't know, it's not right. It's out of place compared to, like, other normal peanut butter. Like, it's dry, and it's not as good. I don't know. I guess it just goes to show you, like, context is important. Context is everything. So, like, great example, ice cream sundae. Everybody loves ice cream sundaes. They're wonderful. They're this nice frosty treat. But I would say sundaes are at the top of their game at like an ice cream parlor or a birthday party or maybe in like your living room on a date night. But not so much, say, at a funeral, for example. Like, call me crazy, but might not be the same experience eating an ice cream sundae sitting in a funeral parlor next to your dead aunt laying very, very still in a wooden box. But going back to peanut butter cups, there's a few different sizes, a few different flavors, but overall, like, when you say peanut butter cup, you mean peanut butter cup. There's not much to differentiate there.
Yeah, like, seriously, what else can we say? They're peanut butter cups. You can buy them at the store, you can make them at home, and most importantly of all, you can get them trick-or-treating at other Halloween activities.
Exactly. We all know what the hell peanut butter cups are, so because of that, let's dig into its earliest origins. So to investigate the history of peanut butter cups, we really should explore the origins of, well, peanut butter. For without that key part, we would have nothing but a chocolate cup. And, we're not talking about those tasty little, like, chocolate molded cups that people make now to, like, fill with, like, liqueurs and puddings and stuff. Although, those aren't half bad, actually.
Yeah, without the peanut butter cups wouldn't really be chocolate cups so much as just chocolate blobs. Although, even a chocolate blob sounds delicious.
I could go for a chocolate blob right about now. Peanut butter is actually really interesting as a foodstuff. Like, we're going to go a little bit deep on it, so it's going to take up most of the origin section just because, peanut butter's awesome. Who doesn't like peanut butter? So a couple of fun facts here. About 90% of households in the United States eat peanut butter. So, like we said before, everybody loves peanut butter. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact. 90% of households in the freaking country eat it. There's good reason for that too.
Peanut butter is pretty good for you. It's absurdly high in protein for just being a tasty plant paste. Like, per weight, about 25% of it is made up of protein, and a standard serving of around 2 tablespoons of peanut butter gives you about 5 to 10 grams of protein, which is fantastic for such a small amount.
Yeah, protein.
In addition to its healthy protein load, it's fairly low in carbs, which is exciting for all the people who would rather bitch and moan about carbohydrates than actually, go perform physical activity to burn carbohydrates.
Yeah, I don't know. In the same vein as people losing their shit over carbohydrates, like peanut butter is also loaded with fat. And yes, fat is actually a good thing. See now, to get dietary for a moment, contrary to decades of bullshit advice based on bad old scientific evidence, it turns out that most dietary fat is actually pretty good for you. Like, even some types of saturated fats actually have a place in a balanced diet. Then you got monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. Those are just like legit nutrients that you should be putting into your body the way that you put stuff like vitamin C and niacin into your body. These unsaturated fats, they overall lower your risk of cardiovascular illness, which is funny because for years, mistaken nutritionists were just like telling you the opposite, that fatty foods cause heart problems. Honestly, like, it's mostly trans fats that are the big problem. Like, those are the ones you should avoid. Anything else, like even saturated fats, are generally safe to eat on a fairly regular basis, if you're eating it in moderation. So feel free to enjoy your butter guilt-free, just as long as you don't just like power fist like a whole stick of it into your mouth. But on the same note, due to like the high protein count and fat content, peanut butter actually does tend to be very calorie dense for its volume. So generally speaking, America as a whole could, benefit from taking in fewer calories in general, but there are still some individuals who need extra calories. Like, for example, like elderly people, like people that are recovering from like surgery, or if they have like illness or something and like they're actively losing weight because they're like malnourished. Peanut butter for them it's a fucking power food. Like, seriously, a few servings of peanut butter, it's like an entire meal in and of itself.
Besides dietary fats, peanut butter has a bunch of other nutrients and vitamins in it, and even includes a bit of fiber as well. Is there anything it can't do?
Well, of course, to be fair, there are health advocates out there who like to soapbox about how most brands of peanut butter are junk food and it's not good for you anymore, and that you should instead just be eating sugarless, unsalted peanut butter because it's healthier. But to be even fairer, there's also health advocates who recommend inserting gemstones into your vagina because apparently it'll give you superpowers or something, so who's to judge here? Really, on a purely empirical level, yes, sugarless, saltless peanut butter is technically healthier for you than, for, example, good peanut butter that tastes good. But at that point, it doesn't really taste like anything anymore. So, like, the whole charm of having this super nutritious, protein-packed, awesome food stuff that's also really good and yummy, it's all lost on that. Like, if you take out the salt and sugar from it, you know what you're eating? Ground up peanuts suspended in oil. So you know what that's going to taste like? Ground up peanuts suspended in oil. Salt and sugar aren't perfect, but really, they're necessary for a lot of things to be palatable and actually enjoy eating them. So just like we mentioned earlier, moderation is key. If you eat peanut butter with actual flavor in it in moderation, it's not going to kill you. So keep slamming down those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with no worries.
Actually, we've already spent so much time talking about peanut butter, but we should dig even deeper here. We should actually look at what peanuts really are. Because, alright, so fun fact. Everyone thinks peanuts are nuts since, they're peanuts.
Mm-hmm,
but
right.
Did you know peanuts aren't nuts.
Oh, really?
Is that common knowledge yet? Because, like, I'm pretty sure everyone's been corrected by someone at some point, but, they're not nuts, they're legumes. Of course, that's such a pedantic baseline fun fact that anyone with a degree in fun fact studies would know, so...
Oh, but wait a sec. Fun fact plot twist. Peanuts are totally nuts. Don't let that old adage fool you, if you couldn't tell by our sarcasm here. All the actually nerds out there who go, actually, they'll fall over each other trying to be the first person in line to tell you that peanuts don't meet the official scientific criteria to be referred to as a nut. However, like, this tipping of the fedora kind of just ignores that there are absolutely other plant families that produce nuts. Like, for example, my family. We're fucking nuts. Seriously, though, namely, there's a subfamily which are referred to as ground nuts, which include peanuts, among a few others, which, as their name suggests, are just nuts that grow underground. Culinarily and culturally, nut has a different meaning than the botanical definition used in science. Like, the definition of a nut in scientific terms is ridiculously restrictive. And, like, even then, there's a lot of things, like seeds, that are nuts, quote-unquote, but they're not even edible. Like, excluding, like, if you're just going to exclude peanuts from the nut party... I can't say that with a straight face. Peanuts in the nut party. I didn't know this episode was going to be so filthy. I don't know how many times I can say nuts over and over again without just cracking up.
Anyway, singling peanuts out is as this weird outlier from the hyper-exclusive definition of what constitutes a nut is just silly. You know what other nuts don't meet the hardcore scientific botanical parameters of a nut?
What?
Almonds, Brazil nuts, cashews, pecans, macadamia nuts, and walnuts. So, like, 75% of all the nuts that we fucking know aren't actually nuts. Oh, no! So, like, sorry food, no more nuts for you. Know what the only nuts we eat that are true nuts? Chestnuts and hazelnuts. That's it.
Yeah. Most nuts aren't scientifically nuts, but we have different varieties like tree nuts and ground nuts with different definitions. So, like, all right, the next time that someone goes, actually, peanuts aren't nuts, they're legumes, you fucking punch them in the face. And while they're on the ground, you fucking take out their phone, you look up the Fabaceae plant family, shove it in their faces, and then smash their phone on the ground because you are not fucking around here. Peanuts do not need any more shade thrown at them, I swear to God.
Joking aside, for real, peanuts are actually a type of plant known as a ground nut. These guys are interesting, because unlike most plants, they bizarrely grow their seeds underground attached to their roots.
Yeah, peanuts in particular, they're a type of shrub that are native to South America, which, hey now, like, this is 2 episodes in a row where we feature a food whose origins are from America. Well, okay, it's South America, it's not the United States of America, so let me change that to, it's a food whose origins are from the Americas.
There's archaeological remains of peanut shells found in Peru that show the plants may have been domesticated over 7,000 years ago. Early civilizations bred wild peanuts to create hybrids that were bushier and better for farming, with larger peanuts than its wild predecessors. From Peru, it spread to much of South America, including Brazil, Ecuador, and Paraguay.
Yeah, and then by the time that the Spanish conquistadors arrived around like the 1500s to crash the party for Mesoamerican civilization as they knew it, peanuts were a common crop for all of them. Most of South American peoples had it. It was brought back to Europe where it didn't really take off as much as you would think it would because peanuts are awesome. But randomly, it instead became very popular in Africa where it was very similar to a relative of them, the bambara, which is another type of ground nut. And it's actually pretty interesting because you'll see a lot of traditional African cuisine and dishes that include peanuts in them, despite the fact that peanuts are like a relatively young phenomenon on that continent. But it's because a lot of their cuisine was developed with ground nuts, the bambara, in mind. So when peanuts arrived and they become the more popular crop, it was really easy to just adopt their recipes that already use them to like use peanuts instead.
Bizarrely enough, peanuts were introduced to the U.S. from Africa, not the other way around. This actually blew our minds a little. Think about the freaking roundabout route those things took to get to the United States. They went from South America to Europe, which then started growing them as a novelty. And when they traded to Africa, they became popular there. And then African traders brought them back across the Atlantic Ocean to North America. So, basically, this would be like if you had a gift for your next-door neighbor, so you hand it off to one of your coworkers, tell them to mail it to your sister so she can stop in at your town to drop the gift off at your neighbor's house. It boggles our minds.
Yeah. To be fair, though, like, even though it seems like it would make sense for, like, Mexican traders or something to just, like, bring peanuts up to the United States, the timeline of world events actually resulted in, like, that wacky world tour route to actually make kind of sense. Because the United States didn't really expand much into the Southwest until, like, the mid-1800s. But, like, by that point, Americans were already trading with Africa. So, yeah, in the end, I guess we were just, like, destined to end up with peanuts around that time, regardless of what happened. It was simply destiny. Speaking of which, by the early 1800s, peanuts were starting to be commercially grown in the United States, but it was mainly used as, like, livestock feed, and they were generally regarded as, like, food for poor people. So, honestly, that's a big whoops on their part, considering how nutritious and yummy peanuts are. Like, people are friggin' idiots. They were wasting it on cows and hobos. Just goes to show you, like, no matter how good a food is, depending on how it's marketed, you could sell it to anyone. Like, look at lobsters. Like, that's one of the poster child cartoon rich person foods now. Like, generally, you only think of people eating it who are, like, lighting cigars with $100 bills. But actually, for the longest time, lobsters were considered a trash food that nobody wanted because they were just these big underwater monster bugs that, like, live in the mud. I guess it just took someone suggesting that you serve it by dipping it in liquid butter to make people actually covet lobster as a dish. So, you know what, I'm going to go back on what I said. It doesn't have to do with who you try to market stuff to. It's what you can serve covered in melted butter. Am I right?
Actually, peanut butter doesn't contain butter, but it does contain the word butter. Is this the secret to making food sound appetizing? Is just associated with butter?
At any rate, peanuts got a boost in popularity in the late 1800s when circuses began serving them as like a cheap, tasty show food, like kind of similar to popcorn.
The real breakthrough for peanuts, however, came a few decades later, and it's all thanks to a man named George Washington Carver, who didn't actually invent peanut butter. That's right. This one was actually a little bit of a surprise. I feel like it's one of those things you pick up in school that no one ever really fact checks. Like, we've been lied to all these years.
Yeah. To be fair, even though Dr. Carver didn't invent peanut butter, he was a big advocate of peanuts being used in foods in general, and he was one of the most prominent scientists to support the idea of making them a staple crop in the first place. This was a big deal because in the early 1900s, there was a surge of weevils, a type of grain pest. They're a tiny little bug that just like bores holes and stuff. They began wiping out cotton crops in the southern states at an alarming rate. And, you know, as we all know, if there's one thing that the antebellum South liked more than cornbread and lynching, it was cotton. Cotton was a hugely important crop to the point that a lot of states in the South had their entire economies revolving around it. So, like, when these weevils showed up basically being like, hey, fuck you guys, we're going to eat all your cotton crops. Well, that was like an apocalyptic scenario for a bunch of states that just finished up the Civil War, which is a different apocalyptic scenario for them. Luckily, though, Dr. Carver and other advocates of peanuts were very successful on this, and a lot of farmers in the South started growing them in like high numbers. It was almost to the point that they flat out replaced cotton as their main export for a while.
As this was going on, peanut butter was also quietly being invented in the background, thanks to another important peanut player, John Harvey Kellogg. And yeah, that's the same Kellogg guy who invented Kellogg's cereals.
Yeah, so in 1895, Kellogg was awarded the very first United States patent for creating peanut butter when he discovered that grinding up the nuts with oil into a paste could serve as a helpful protein substitute for people who didn't have teeth. And no, that's not a made-up fact that way. It sounds like a joke, but seriously, go back to how we mentioned that like peanut butter and peanuts in general are just like really nutritious and tasty. So, you know, now what if you got a bunch of medical patients who are missing their teeth and they still got to get food in their bodies? Well, this is before IVs and feeding tubes were a thing, so that was off the table.
Kellogg and some other physicians started making peanut butters to provide a nutrient source for people who couldn't chew solid foods anymore. If you think for a moment, back in the 1800s, let's just say dental hygiene wasn't particularly well established at the time. Probably wasn't too common for people to lose probably wasn't too uncommon for people to lose most of all their teeth by the time they were in their 60s or 70s. And at that point, a nice corn on the cob is pretty out of the question. But while they had sad shit like gruel and porridge, maybe some of these elderly people wanted something that, you know, featured a flavor. So peanut butter filled that niche quite well, to the point that it spilled out to the general public.
Yeah, come to think of it, you don't see a lot of people with dentures or no teeth in general anymore. Is that like a reflection of like widespread dental care now? Like, Are dentures gonna fall by the wayside? Who's worried about the dentures industry? Come on, wake up, people. Big dentistry is making it so that hard-working tooth craftsmen and the makers of Polygrip are all gonna lose their jobs. It's time to make America toothless again. We can't let that industry go. It's too big and important. There just ain't enough meth addicts out there to sustain them for another 10 years. Who's with me?
Is this another thing millennials are going to get accused of killing, the denture industry?
Yes, exactly. Millennials killed doorbells, and they killed motorcycles, and then they killed dentures. Anyway, peanut butter took off in the early 1900s, and it didn't really take very long for it to become an American fixture.
Now then, chocolate meanwhile, we've covered the advent of chocolate before, so we don't really need to focus on it too much, but let's look at a brief history of chocolates in terms of candies and miniatures.
So as mentioned in previous episodes, chocolate is originally from South America, much like peanuts themselves. It's interesting to think that this perfect pair started off in the same regions before their holy matrimony in the 20th century. And actually, much like peanuts, chocolates were introduced to the rest of the world after the Spanish brought it back with them to Europe during the Age of Exploration. Wait a sec. So just like peanut butter, modern chocolate was invented in the mid-1800s as well. Wow, man, it is so beautiful to think that these two perfect foods are basically just like twinsies. They're cut from the same cloth. They both left and did their own thing for a few centuries before they reunited in North America with the dawn of peanut butter cups. It's like the greatest romance story never told. Which one do you think would be the top and which one would be the bottom?
Chocolate would be on top because peanut butter is the filling of peanut butter cups.
Wait a sec, but if peanut butter was inside the chocolate, then... Actually, you know what? Never mind. This candy introspective has already gotten enough innuendo after we talked about nut parties.
Anyway, British chocolatier Joseph Fry, no relation to professional douchebag Stephen Fry, is credited with inventing the chocolate bar in 1847 when he figured out that he could make a chocolate paste with cocoa powder and sugar and mold it into a bar shape.
Yeah, prior to this, cocoa powder is mostly just used as like a flavor, or was like in baked goods, and the concept of just, well, chocolate didn't exist yet. So even though we like to talk shit about Britain's spotty history of cuisine all the time, we are in their debt for chocolate bars at the very least. For more rare glimpses of us not making fun of terrible, terrible British cuisine, go check out our chicken tikka masala episode of Deep Dish. Actually, wait, no. We still made fun of British food a bunch in that episode, so... Oh well, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it anyway. It's a lot of fun. A couple years ago, after inventing the plain chocolate bar, Mr. Fry then invented the very first candy bar kind of chocolate bar. In 1849, he created the Fry's Chocolate Cream Bar, which is just a chocolate bar filled with like milk cream inside. And that product became incredibly popular because of fucking course it did. It's the world's first chocolate bar. Duh.
Chocolate bars underwent some processing and preparation advancements over the next 50 years, which helped to make them easier to produce and improve the texture. Namely, the Swiss chocolatier Daniel Peter teamed up with Henry Nestle to invent milk chocolate, where they discovered they could make a creamier, smoother chocolate bar if they used powdered milk, which Nestle was claimed for.
And then by the end of the 19th century, chocolate bars were already a big market in Europe, so they made their way over to America pretty quickly, and, well, the rest is, well, history. So that should wrap it up for today's topic. Until next week, guys, happy Halloween. No, but seriously, chocolate and peanut butter were both getting popular in the US around the turn of the century, so once again, it just seemed like destiny that they would team up sooner rather than later. So let's get nitty and let's get gritty, because now it's time to take a look at the history and development of today's topic. So, chocolate bars were quickly becoming popular in both Europe and North America following their invention in the mid-1800s by Joseph Fry, and they had no signs of slowing down because chocolate is awesome and people tend to like awesome things. When Fry and Cadbury were taking over the United Kingdom and other parts of Europe, the United States was about to see its own wave of chocolatiers rising up as well. The first of these major brands was the very niche company that nobody's heard of called Hershey.
What is this Hershey you speak of?
And by niche, I mean that no one's heard of. Of course, I mean the extremely popular, one of the biggest companies in the world, Hershey.
Oh, that Hershey. Yeah. Okay. Milton S. Hershey of Pennsylvania started his very own company with the introduction of the Hershey bar in 1900. Hershey had actually been involved in confections before, but it didn't really work out for him. Twice he had businesses fail, which is a total bummer. Luckily, the guy hit a bit... had a bit more drive than the rest of us, and he kept on trying.
Yeah, good for him, because I am the exact fucking opposite of that. Like, I get discouraged so easily with everything. Like, I'm the kind of person that if I burn a slice of toast, I'll just, like, rage quit breakfast for the next 3 days. Like, fuck this, fucking breakfast. If I don't immediately succeed at everything I do in life, I get mad at myself and I just give up instantly. Like, seriously, it's a fucking miracle that we've made this podcast and, like, we're still doing it after 4 months and not immediately becoming internet celebrities. Like, hell, I'm thinking of quitting right now as I read this sentence. Don't tempt me, listeners. I will spite my way out of this in the blink of a fucking eye, and I will delete every single file that has to do with Poor Couples Food Guide, and if you don't share this with everyone, I am serious. What I meant to say was, don't forget to like and subscribe, everyone.
He's not even kidding. Like, this episode almost didn't get made.
But it did. So anyway, as we mentioned, Mr. Hershey gave it another go, and the third time was a charm, because his newest venture into caramels was profitable, and that allowed him to build up a candy company of his own, finally in 1886. 1886, he started his own company.
By 1894, Hershey was able to start selling their own brand of cocoa powder, which officially launched the Hershey brand.
Yeah, and then as we said, in 1900, Hershey created the Hershey Chocolate Bar, which was pitched as an affordable chocolate bar that everyone can enjoy, not just rich people. And that makes a lot of sense now, considering that Hershey bars actually kind of suck. I mean, what? Look, I'm not knocking the guy. He did a lot for chocolate, but like plain-ass Hershey chocolate bars, they kind of taste like you took like a richer, better-tasting chocolate bar, like opened it up, took it out of the wrapper, and just like let it sit out in the open in a crawl space for like a month or two. I don't like them. Negging aside though, Milton Hershey actually seems like a really decent guy. He was kind of like the Walt Disney of chocolate. Like just a few years after launching the Hershey bar, he went on to like the next step for every chocolatier, obviously, and built a fucking city. Seriously, again, not joking on that one. Only a decade or so after crafting a successful business, this guy just sits down and goes, man, you know, we created a chocolate bar. I mean, the natural progression from here is to create our own civilization, right?
Hershey, Pennsylvania was founded in 1905 when Mr. Hershey realized that if he wanted happy, effective employees to keep cranking out his turd bar, he'd need to provide them with all the commodities to keep an early 20th century working man satisfied. Affordable homes, public transportation, reputable schools, and of course, a zoo.
I like that when he was building this brand new like utopia city, he was like, they gotta have a zoo. These chocolate workers are slaving their asses off 24/7. The least I could do is let them throw popcorn and a couple of zebras on their days off. Side note here, we did some research using Hershey's very own website for this section, and like, you know that stupid warning about like websites using cookies that like the stupid European Union like foisted onto us a couple years ago? Man, oh man, that has never been worse than it was with Hershey's website, because seeing Hershey.com asking me over and over if I accept all of their cookies, well, that's just cruel. Hershey.com wants to know if you'll accept all their cookies.
Seriously, like, yes, Hershey, I accept all of your cookies. Give me cookies. Can I go get a cookie?
Imagine if what you could do was, if you're on a website that's giving you cookies and you click OK, accept cookies, and then your disk drive just like and a cookie just fucking is in there perfectly baked.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing, except that joke doesn't work anymore because no computers have fucking CD drives anymore.
We have to wait for everyone to get 3D printers.
There we go. Then we'll see the 3D print cookies, and then like health nuts will find something wrong with that. They're like, that food's not real, it's 3D printed. Going back to Hershey, the city of Hershey quickly became populated by workers and their families, and shortly after this success, Mr. Hershey set out onto his next conquest, building a theme park. Not quite what you'd expect. Would have been cooler to like start his own country, but merry-go-rounds are cool too, I guess.
Hershey Park was opened in 1906 and remains open to this very day. What started off as a small little circus-style park has grown into one of the most popular theme parks in the world, with roller coasters and water rides and creepy mascots and all sorts of crazy shit.
Do you think if you kill one of the creepy like costume monsters and like dig into their like dead bodies, they're just like chocolate inside? Like,
probably not, because we would probably hear about like mascot murders at Hershey's Park all the time if that was the case.
That's true. Like, I don't know. I'm just picturing, like, I know they're very clearly just like big plush like bad costumes. Like, just, man, the idea of just like a giant like peanut butter cup man or like a Three Musketeer man, just like slice them open. It's like, whoa! And then just kids are just like, it's like hysterical to me. Don't mind us, folks. This incoherent bullshit is just like the day-to-day banter that we come up with on a regular basis because, we're basically just two 9-year-olds in adult disguises.
How many of like the mascots of like candy bars, if those are real, I've never been there, I don't know, but if those exist, how many of them do you think get bitten by children who are just like, oh boy, mommy, a giant chocolate bar?
That's a good question. Like, have you ever been to Hershey Park?
No, I haven't.
I've been there twice, and I don't remember how many there are, but like they're around the park. You see them. You can't go around the park and not see them. So, man, that would suck though. Like, that's like the start of that's the start of a friggin' zombie movie that needs to be made now. Speaking of stupid kids, it seems that old Milton Hershey had a soft spot for children as well. I mean, checks out. Liking children is probably a prerequisite for becoming a world-renowned chocolatier. In 1909, he opened up the Milton Hershey School, which is aimed at giving an education to underprivileged youths who would normally be shunned from society. Fuck, does this guy look good now? Maybe I shouldn't have made fun of Hershey bars before. I'm actually starting to feel kind of bad.
Over the rest of his life, Hershey built a cemetery, started a charity organization, and funded a hospital. Man, befittingly, since he was a chocolate god, we just gotta say, this guy Milton Hershey, he was an absolute sweetheart, it seems.
He was. That actually brings us to today's main topic, actually, since we're supposed to be talking about peanut butter cups, Reese's peanut butter cups. So, namely, another stamp in the Milton Hershey is a fucking saint column was his super generous and ridiculously supportive relationship that he had with the inventor of the peanut butter cup, Harry Burnett Reese. So, in other words, Reese's peanut butter cups.
Harry Burnett Reese, aka H.B. Reese, aka Reese, started off similarly to his friend Hershey in that he began his career as a total fuck-up. First, he was managing fishing operations for a canning company. Then he got into the butcher trade, and then he worked in a factory, and at one point was doing work in a paper mill. Normally, any of these jobs might have been good enough for an ordinary person, but inexplicably, Mr. Reese and his wife had 16 children.
Ugh.
16 fucking children. Ugh. His poor wife, like, could she even walk after all that?
Oh, man, that sounds... Ugh. I want so badly to rag on this guy for that, but, like, if he didn't need more money to feed the small village that was his wife and children, he might have never gone into the chocolate trade, and we wouldn't have peanut butter cups now. Like... People are always, like, joking around and, like, people think about how we live in the worst timeline of all, but, like, ho, ho, ho. Do I have news for all of you? Because if you think that we live in the worst timeline, picture everything wrong with 2020 right now, like the COVID pandemic, the United States presidential election, the police brutality and protests and riots. That all sucks. And it's pretty damn bad. But picture all that bullshit in a world... and there's no peanut butter cups.
That would be worse. Way worse.
That could be totally fucking worse, folks. So, if that horn dog, H.B. Reese, had gotten it on with his wife just a few fewer times, had a tiny bit fewer children, he might not have reached out to a specific job ad that would have sent him down the path to permanently improving all of our Christmases, and Halloweens, and Easters, and just in general.
Yeah, life in general. In 1917, H.B. Reese took a job at the Hershey Chocolate Company as a dairy worker. The next year, in 1918, Reese got a promotion when Mr. Hershey asked him to become the manager of one of their dairy farms.
Yeah, unfortunately, this business venture didn't exactly pay off either, since after just 2 years, Hershey closed down all of its dairy farms, and thus Mr. Reese was out of a job once again. It seems like working for a hotshot chocolate tycoon rubbed off on him, though, since Reese then began dabbling with chocolate confections himself. This same year, 1919, Reese started up the R&R Candy Company, where they made absolute fucking trash. Chocolate-covered raisins, chocolate-covered dates. That's what they made. May as well have been making fucking chocolate-covered dog shit, because raisins are basically on the same level as actual fecal matter. Let's be real. Interesting side note here, one of Hershey's relatives actually worked for this first company of Reese's, so it's just another pen in the quill or whatever. That's how interconnected the Hershey's and the Reese's were.
R&R Candy Co. wasn't successful at first, so he restructured and started a new company, referring to it as Superior Chocolate and Confectionery Company.
Well, this second company wasn't very superior since it also ended up failing as well, because of fucking course it did. If you were just selling chocolate dates and raisins and chocolate nuts and shit, you would have had better success selling just the wrappers of them, because people could have used them for like toilet paper or something in the Depression. Like, let this be a lesson to everyone out there. Don't get involved with raisins. Raisins suck. Raisins are terrible. Fuck raisins.
After this debacle, in 1921, Reese got another job for his old friend Milton Hershey, now working in one of his in the warehouses, since, in case you forgot, this guy had double digits children to account for. Luckily, Hershey took him back again.
Man, it's hard to tell, like, was Hershey, like, really just that great of a person that he just, like, was really looking out for Reese and just kept helping him out like that? Or, like, were they fucking or something? There's gotta be something else at play there. Like, I don't know. Actually, now that I'm looking in the research at photos of H.B. Reese, and, he's nothing special. Like, not a bad looking dude, but, like, he just kind of looks like every man you ever see from the early 1900s. But yeah, like, I don't know. I guess, like we said, I guess if you want to be the face of a giant international, like, chocolate company, like, in a giant industry, like, figure like that, you need to be naturally good on the inside. Like, you gotta be the chocolate. Like, a good core inside. Like, a tasty, sweet, caramelly core filled with chocolate pieces and puffed rice and chocolate mousse and... Oh, God, give me a minute.
While you recover, I'll take over. But yeah, Reese kept working for Hershey while still experimenting with chocolates in his spare time at home, which was now located in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And this business never really took off either. He still wasn't successful enough to do anything with it, so he kept on working for Hershey in the warehouse.
So, after a year or so, Reese was then promoted to foreman of the warehouse by Mr. Hershey, and after another few years of that, he felt confident enough to try his hand at starting his own candy company again.
In 1923, Reese quit his job at Hershey and started the H.B. Reese Candy Company, which still unfortunately included chocolate dates and raisin clusters, but featured a much larger lineup of things that actually resemble things you'd want to eat. Their initial offerings included marshmallows, butterscotch candies, caramels, coconut candies, nougat, peppermint cream, and peanut butter treats, as well as 2 chocolate bars, the Lizzie Bar and the Johnny Bar, named after 2 of his kids.
I'm not sure why the other 14 kids didn't get anything named after them, but, like, it also must have been sucked to be in the room when he unveiled those bars to his family, like, "Children, gather around. I've got a brand new treat I want you all to try today. Ooh, yes, Pa, show us. We can't wait to see what sort of chocolatey good you've made. This here is the Lizzie Bar. I named it after good old Elizabeth here. Why'd you name it after her, not me? Yeah, or me. Why not? Now, children, settle down. I also made this other chocolate bar named after Johnny as well. But that's it. Johnny and Lizzie are your mother and I's favorites. The rest of you can all go to hell for all I care. Fuck you."
Yeah, definitely no question about who Dad's favorites were. I wonder if those 2 just got, like, the shit kicked out of them afterwards.
Poor kids. But yeah, I guess third time really is the charm with Mr. Reese as well, because, you know, this one took off. I wonder if they had just, like, started making peanut butter cups and stuff in the first company, R&R, if, like, they could have skipped all this bullshit and just been successful the first time.
Yeah, like, so interesting. Imagine that. You start a candy company that doesn't just focus on raisin and dates and is actually successful. Crazy.
Whoa.
But most importantly of all, one of the most popular products by the H.B. Reese Candy Company was their new peanut butter cup. That's right, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup.
Yeah. Sadly, there isn't really a whole lot of documentation or, like, written accounts that we could find surrounding the invention of peanut butter cups. It just basically seems like Reese was just, like, screwing around for a few years, seeing what types of chocolate goods he could come up with in his basement, and that's about it. Like, supposedly he first began working on, like, a peanut butter chocolate candy because, like, some local shop contacted him for help. Apparently some other chocolatier had been making a chocolate-covered peanut butter candy, but they just weren't manufacturing enough of them for the shop to keep up with, so they basically just, like, asked him, "Hey, you think you could do this too?" And Reese agreed to step in and create his own version of it, and so, bam, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup was created.
It's worth noting that during this whole time span, even though Reese had quit Hershey, he kept using their chocolate in his products as a sort of olive branch, I guess. That, or it was just really convenient to use product that was being manufactured in the same town as you. Remember, Reese was operating this new company from his house in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and soon after he began the Reese Chocolate Company. He opened a factory in the same town.
Man, can I say it's actually really inspiring to see like this great business relationship between these two dudes. Like Hershey saw so much promise in Reese despite the fact he just looked like a fucking just disaster loser. And he was just like repeatedly willing to help the guy out. Like even though for some time like Reese was actually a competitor with his own company. But apparently Mr. Hershey just took a liking to Reese. Like he just wanted to reward such a hardworking man for all his efforts. That and like I wouldn't be surprised if he saw a little bit of himself, like his younger self in Reese, for being such a fucking loser. Like, Hershey shit the bed with a few chalk adventures before he hit it big, and as we saw with Reese, he also failed to hit his stride. Repeatedly. A lot of times, over and over. Quite frankly, dude was kind of a loser. Like, honestly, he might not have even made it anywhere if Mr. Hershey wasn't fighting so hard to help him succeed.
Any famous podcasters out there want to be the Hershey's to our Reese?
Yeah. No one does. No one wants to help us.
We're available if you do.
Yeah, come on. Be a guest. We'll let you say all the swear words, and we'll give you Reese's peanut butter cups, and we'll give you a stipend of.
You can pet Charlie.
Yeah, we'll give you a stipend of Charlie pets. He's calmed down now. He's asleep. But yeah, this relationship, like, it was to the point that during the early years of like the HB Reese Candy Company, despite having some success with it, like he still wasn't quite there, and he still was in danger of going out of business due to like some economic hardships. Probably because you have 16 children, it's going to be hard no matter what. But he ended up applying for a credit loan from the Hershey Company, and he was turned down by like their financial advisors. But then Milton Hershey himself stepped in and was like, "No, fuck that," and like he granted him the loan with no questions asked. Like, honestly, it's kind of sad. Like, Reese would have been homeless like 6 times if Hershey didn't just pick him up over and over and over again. But look at that. Like, thank God he did, because that's ultimately what led to Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, like, sticking around and being a thing.
Interestingly, peanut butter cups were sold as part of a big box assortment alongside other products. But the cups specifically became so popular with customers that people were begging Reese to just sell them individually. Reese listened to them, and in 1935, they began selling individually wrapped peanut butter cups, thus officially creating the modern version that we know today.
Or, we should say, a sort of creating the product we know today. Because there's one other interesting little trivia thing we got to go over regarding what makes Reese's Peanut Butter Cups so damn special. During the process of roasting peanuts and making peanut butter for the cups, it was common for Reese's machine he was using to, like, malfunction, which ended up, like, slightly burning the peanut butter. Basically, like, his machine was a piece of crap. He couldn't afford a better one. But interestingly enough, this overcooked version of peanut butter, it turned out to work really well with the chocolate. So when customers got like the slightly burnt version, they preferred it to the smooth, normal peanut butter version.
Ironically, Reese eventually bought a newer, better machine, which ended up ruining the product because everyone was used to the weird, drier, crumblier peanut butter from the old machine. Luckily for all of us, Reese had the foresight to then modify the cooking process and had to actually put in a lot of work to replicate the old machine, basically fucking up their batches of peanut butter.
But yeah, after Reese's Peanut Butter Cups took off, other companies followed suit. They began making their own peanut butter cups, but none of them could capture this same secret texture and flavor that Reese had worked so hard to like actively fuck up to like make it good. Peanut butter cups got more and more popular to the point that even in the 1940s during World War II, the sales of the product were doubling every single year, despite the fact they had like restricted ingredients and like war rations and stuff. Like, Reese knew how good the peanut butter cup was because due to this problem with rations and his supply chain, he just said fuck it. He discontinued all other products and just focused all their efforts on peanut butter cups.
And in return for all the help and support of his friend Milton Hershey, Mr. Reese proudly advertised that peanut butter cups were made with Hershey's chocolate, funneling positive press back to the company.
Peanut butter cups were huge, and they were one of the most popular chocolate treats in the United States for decades. By the 1960s, the annual sales of Reese's Peanut Butter Cups were equivalent to like $243 million. That's incredible. And to sort of wrap things up, finally in 1963, following Mr. Reese's death, unfortunately, it wasn't an early death, but he died. So following that death, the small village of offspring that was his like sons, they agreed to merge the HB Reese Chocolate Company with Hershey, which only helped them become even more popular to the point that it's frequently rated as one of, if not the most popular chocolate bar in North America. Obviously, though, the story doesn't end there, so it's time to get modern and see what people have been doing with peanut butter cups in recent history. So as we mentioned, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups tend to be one of the most popular chocolate bars in the world. Although, do they actually count as bars? I mean, they're not necessarily bar-shaped, but to be fair, neither crowbars or handlebars or, bars.
But since they merged with Hershey's in the 60s, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups have only gotten bigger and better, quite literally with some special editions. For example, a few years back, Hershey introduced the Big Cup in 2005, which was a larger version, about 1.5 times the size of a normal cup. Perfect if you're in the mood for that Reese's goodness and a regular one just isn't enough.
Yeah, but nah, what if you're hungrier than that? What if you need a peanut butter cup that's a full-on half-pound of chocolatey goodness? Well, then you're in luck, because Hershey upped the ante by creating the Reese's World's Biggest Cup, which was a full 8 ounces for each cup. Note that the moniker World's Biggest was its, branding, not an official title, because it wasn't, in fact, the world's biggest. And actually, we should probably take back our you're in luck, since they don't actually make these anymore. But that's with good reason. A few years after that, Hershey introduced a 16-ounce full-pound peanut butter cup. So those world's biggest cups, they didn't really retain that title very long. Hershey outdid itself pretty quickly. Unlike the last ones, though, these are still available for purchase, either from Hershey's website directly or at Hershey specialty stores. There's one of those here in New York City, I think, but I can't vouch for anywhere else. But hey, online is better than any in-person store right now with the pandemic this year.
Incidentally, you can get a lot of these giant-style peanut butter cups at small business candy shops and chocolate stores. If you have any around you, go chunk it out and see if you can get some.
Yeah, on the opposite end of things, Hershey also introduced Reese's Peanut Butter Cup Thins for, I don't know, people who are on a diet but are still eating candy for some reason. I don't know. I've never been in a position to, eat a peanut butter cup and be damn, I love these. You know what I really wish they do? Make them smaller so I can get less of them.
Who wants less peanut butter? I don't understand.
Well,
also, after learning about how good for you peanut butter is, earlier in the episode, wouldn't including less peanut butter make these less good for you?
So, I mean, yeah, there's also, everybody's favorite goodie bag and stocking stuffer filler, Reese's Miniatures, which, honestly, hot take here, those kind of suck. Don't get me wrong, I love them, but, unwrapping them and, getting the paper cup off, and then you got a bunch of, paper and shit sitting there, that's 10 times more difficult than just a standard peanut butter cup. I don't think anyone out there is looking to I don't know, they're not looking forward to performing precise technical work with their fingers when they eat chocolates. I assume everyone just wants to get it into their face as quickly as realistically possible. Honestly, it's a miracle that we don't all just eat those damn things, just wrapper and all, because you're so impatient.
Didn't you just unwrap all of the ones, in the package my parents got you for Christmas last year in one sitting?
Yes.
So you just eat them all, without unwrapping them
Yes,
later?
that's what I did. I sat down, I took a whole bag of Hershey's Miniatures, and I took a half an hour to just one by one unwrap them and then put them back into the bag, and it was a pain in the ass, but I guess it was worth it. In terms of other varieties, Reese's has a bunch of other ones you've probably seen over time, so here's a short list. Caramel, crunchy peanut butter, double chocolate fudge, cookie crunch, Reese's Pieces, double crunch, peanut butter banana cream, hazelnut cream, marshmallow, chocolate lovers, dark chocolate, white chocolate, inside out, and a taste of Georgia honey roasted peanut butter cups.
Honestly, I didn't know about 90% of those. Since when the hell was there a banana cream one? More importantly, why was there a banana cream one?
From what I looked into, supposedly the flavor was inspired by the infamous sandwich that was responsible for transforming Elvis Presley from one of the hottest, coolest men on the planet into the world's very first Elvis impersonator. If you're familiar, apparently there was some sandwich that Elvis was really into. I think he had it at a hotel or something. And basically, it consisted of a toasted sandwich grilled in bacon fat with sugary caramelized bananas, bacon strips, and peanut butter on the inside. And they would grill it in the bacon fat. So, yeah, he started eating these things. He loved them so much that he ate them on such a regular basis that he went from rocker bod to dad bod to Snorlax bod. And then he died.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's more than just the sandwiches behind that, but either way. Not really sure why they thought this was a good idea to base the peanut butter cup off of. Most people's reaction to that sandwich is generally like, what the fuck? I guess it could have been worse, though. They could have stuck bacon bits into it. Ugh.
Interesting little factoid here, but the, like, iconic, you got chocolate in my peanut butter, you got peanut butter in my chocolate, like, slogan that they, like, everyone associates with Reese's peanut butter cups and, like, old-timey, like, old-fashioned commercials. It's actually not that old, believe it or not. Like, this is totally got to be a case of, like, the Mandela effect, right? Because, like, we thought that was, like, really old, and I feel like everyone thinks it's really old, but... So that ad campaign with, like, the two stupid kids, it was actually from, like, the 70s and the 80s, which... Actually, wait a sec. Shit. The 80s are, like, almost 50 years ago? Son of a bitch. When did that happen? Ugh. I swear, no matter what year it is, I still think, like, 1985 was, like, 20 years ago. Fuck. Anyway, yeah, those vintage ads, while, like, okay, fine. Maybe they're, like, 40 to 50 years old or whatever. Like, they're still not as old as if, say, they aired in, like, the 1940s or something, which I feel like most people seem that's when they're from. So, like, even though they are, like, you know, they seem super fucking old, they're not super fucking old. They're just fucking old.
Those ads are also just weird because it made it seem like peanut butter cups were some kind of new invention in the 70s when they'd already been around and popular for decades at that point.
Yeah, that's really bizarre. Like, I guess, like, they were probably, like, trying to, like, reboot peanut butter cups or something like that. Who knows? I mean, I guess it worked because peanut butter cups are as popular as they've ever been.
Yeah.
It should be worth mentioning, like, even though Reese's is the brand we all think about, which, you know, is totally fair because they fucking invented the things, there are still other brands out there that make them. There's Palmer, that, like, one brand of, like, cheapo chocolate you get at, like, drugstores and, like, Genovese and stuff that tastes like cocoa powder and earwax. Yeah, let's be honest. Like, there's basically just, like, Reese's and a bunch of nobodies. Like, there's a decent number of store brands that make their own cups. Like, Walmart's got Sam's Choice, Trader Joe's makes their own. I think Aldi and Lidl might have them. Like, Aldi has a brand like Chocour. We actually saw them in the store today. But then, you know, of course, you have, like, their wave of, like, pretentious, healthy candy brands which slap all these buzzwords onto the package to try to trick you into feeling good about eating a chocolate bar. I found a few of them, like, Justin's, Unreal Foods, and Theo. Who the hell are we kidding? Nobody gives a shit about these. We'll stop. Oh, actually, this one is a fairly recent one that I totally didn't even remember. Butterfingers apparently started making peanut butter cups a few years ago. I've never had them before. Like, we should give it a shot. Like, Butterfingers are delicious. Peanut butter cups are delicious. Like, So, yeah, like I said, I forgot they existed until this episode, though.
Honestly, Hershey and Reese's built that brand up, and it shows. There's few products out there that are so closely linked to the brand name, and again, part of that is probably because Reese invented it. And it's interesting to think back to how the thing that set Reese's Cups apart was basically that he was too poor to afford a new machine, so his batches of peanut butter kept burning. Now that texture and flavor is exactly what people want and crave.
Hey man, salty and sweet is a banging flavor combo. Like, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Opposites go well together, baby. Salted caramel, bittersweet, yeah. Punk rock and eyeliner, chicks with guns for muscles. Contrast is attractive. And hey, even science backs it up when it comes to food. According to Penn State University professor of food science, Gregory Ziegler, it's something that's referred to as dynamic sensory contrast. Basically, your taste buds really like contrasting flavors and textures just because, I don't know, the way that it, like, lights up, like, the neurons in your brain and shit. So, for example, sweet, smooth chocolate versus salty, crumbly peanut butter. Perfect.
Funnily enough, though, this goes back to how we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that Hershey tried producing the Reese's peanut butter on its own, and it kind of sucked. Well, without chocolate covering it to give you that sensory contrast, well, you just have a shitty, ruined jar of burned peanut butter. Like, come on, who's going to eat that?
In terms of very, very recent developments that we found for Reese's and peanut butter cups specifically, well, actually, Hershey's done a really good job marketing them, like, in recent years, too, with, like, some, pretty, like, hip innovations, I guess. A few years ago, they started using the beloved Canadian-American sassy pants horse overlord, also known as Will Arnett, as their spokesperson for peanut butter cups, using his grovelly, sensual voice, telling it like it is, uttering their latest catchphrase, "Not sorry, Reese's," as they appeal to like the everyman with commercials that basically boil down to like, hey, other candy is fucking trash. Go buy a Reese's for fuck's sakes. Not sorry, Reese's. I really wish they'd actually make that a commercial now.
But beyond some edgy marketing, they also launched their very own candy trade-in program at a Halloween celebration in Tarrytown, New York, of Sleepy Hollow fame. Basically, the idea here was, well, fuck other candy, get a Reese's. Man, that should be their slogan. Come on.
It
It has the same message of not sorry Reese's, but it's even better. Anyway, at a parade on October 28th, 2018, trick-or-treaters could go to this thing that looked like a vending machine, deposit any candy they didn't want, and in exchange they would receive peanut butter cups for them. And man, that's a brilliant idea. Why didn't they keep doing this stunt every year? Too many times have trick-or-treaters been gypped by receiving garbage like Milk Duds and off-brand M&M lookalikes and taffy that's been sitting in a basement since the 50s.
Ugh. You think that machine accepted pennies? Old ladies love giving out pennies for some reason. Actually, I do have one problem with this, though, and it's not actually Reese's fault. But namely, the parade festival they installed it at took place on October 27th for trick-or-treaters. So, right now, here's what's happening. Half our audience is probably scratching their heads like, trick-or-treating on the 27th? The frick? And then the other half of our audience is sitting there going, I don't get the big deal. And the latter half of you are fucking wrong. See, I didn't realize this, but a few years ago I found out from a friend in New Hampshire that, like, there are a lot of places in the United States where trick-or-treating is just, like, set on a day in October that's not Halloween. Like...
It's stupid.
Right? Like, how? Why? What? Like, what is that? Like, trick-or-treating and Halloween, like, that's the thing you do for Halloween. Like, that'd be like, oh, yeah, you know what? We're just gonna set up a Christmas tree in, like, February, and you're gonna open your presents on Thanksgiving. Fuck that. Like, from what I heard, from what I could, like, tell, it seems like places, like, small towns, what they'll do is instead of just, like, being like, hey, kids, like, do your trick-or-treating, like, on Halloween, they'll, like, organize trick-or-treating. Like, it's this, like, municipal, like established thing. Like, I don't even, like, some places might even organize it through their, like, township. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's stupid. I feel like, wasn't there a thing... Didn't we see a thing when we first learned about that some places wanted to, like, make... Instead of making Halloween the 31st, make it, like, the last September... last, like, Saturday of October or something? Yeah. And, like, that's dumb.
Fuck that. Get the fuck out of here. You can't change the day of Halloween. Like, regardless of anything, like, it's supposed to coincide with, like, I don't know, All Saints Day and, like, All Hallows Eve and all that shit. Like, I think it was, like... a couple years ago, like, was it like Ohio, or like, I feel like it was one of our relatives, like, they were complaining that, like, trick-or-treating got canceled or something because they had, like, a storm or something. Oh
yeah, I think it was.
I don't remember what happened. Like, Ohio doesn't get hurricanes, so I don't remember if it was a hurricane or a snowstorm or what the frig it was. But, like, I remember them complaining because they, like, the town canceled trick-or-treating. Yeah. It's like, the town doesn't get to decide that. Like, not to get, like, libertarian, like, fucking, like, the government doesn't get to decide Halloween. The government has no fucking, like, regulation of Halloween. Halloween is Halloween. Like, it's ruled by ghosts and pumpkins and fucking skeletons. Like, if the friggin', like, I don't know, if your, like, local legislators are like, Halloween can't take place this year, or be like, it has to be on, like, Friday the 25th, like, fuck them. Give them the middle finger and go trick-or-treating on Halloween, because that's bullshit. Let's finish this up.
Alright. Anyway, yeah. So, like, there's one final genius maneuver on Hershey and Reese's part. This story is brand new. It's hot off the presses. It's on fire. Whoa. It'll give you third-degree burns if you handle it without oven mitts. That's how hot it is. Well, actually, by the time you listen to this podcast, it'll probably be, like, over a week old and have cooled to room temperature.
But, yeah, seriously, this is from about a week ago. Reese's recently announced that they're launching a socially distant trick-or-treat machine that will give trick-or-treaters access to peanut butter cups, which, of course, fits into the whole 2020 narrative because, you know, COVID-19 is still a problem in a lot of places. Basically, this thing it's like a giant rectangle box with wheels with a door on the front of it, like an actual, like, house, like spooky haunted house door attached to the front of it. It shoots out smoke and lights, and it gets driven around it's going to be driven around like a few select neighborhoods on Halloween night, because you fucking trick-or-treat on Halloween night. And when people go up to it, you can announce trick or treat, and you'll not just receive a Reese's peanut butter cup, you'll receive a king-size Reese's peanut butter cup pack. Motherfucker. How cool is that? Like, Halloween, obviously, and trick-or-treating are different this year because everyone, we have the pandemic still going on, so, like, everyone's afraid of getting sick, and, like, there's all different reports of, like, how long it lasts on surfaces, and it's airborne, and that's the more dangerous thing, so, like, I don't know, like, I've been of the mindset that, like, Halloween is, like, the one holiday that is perfectly set up for a friggin' pandemic because, one, it's mostly outdoors, and two, everyone's already wearing a friggin' mask, so I don't see the problem here. Like, I don't know. There's just, like, there's the idea of, like, oh, you're gonna get, like, I don't know, you gotta check your candy for tampering. Like, are people gonna sneak coronavirus into your Snickers bar? Like, I think it's sage advice that if you have an open chocolate bar, like, don't eat it regardless.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, like, maybe people, like, send their candy off to, like, the lab and, like, have it tested for coronavirus, like, 14 days later. It's like, good news, kids! It's COVID-free! Dig in! But, yeah, so, to Reese's credit, they came up with this idea to, basically cut out the idea of, like, people interacting with each other. So, it's just a big, dumb robot box that, like, shoots out candy. Like, I love the idea, especially that, like, someone that works for Hershey's is going to be tasked with driving a giant glowing vending machine around some neighborhood on Halloween. Like, what a bizarre job that's got to be. Like, what unlucky intern got forced into that? Like, Johnson, you've been with us a few months now. We've got a new assignment for you. Like, yes, sir. Are we going to brainstorm some new Reese's peanut butter cup ideas? No. Tell me, how good are you with RC cars? No, I mean, not very good. Well then, tell me this. How good are you with giant RC vending machine cars on wheels? What? Here's the controller, here's the interface. Learn to drive before Friday or you're fired. And make sure you hit the lights and fog effects. It's gonna be spooky.
Seriously, though, good for the people who get to use it. Because just seeing pictures of it is so ludicrous. It's great. Like, we would totally lose our shit if we saw the thing driving around Patchogue.
Oh my god, I totally would.
We'd be knocking children out of the way.
Get the fuck out of the way. Oh, you can't
trick or treat machine, trick or treat.
Oh, seriously though, like, man, 2020 has been a shitty year, but, like, there's a lot bad going on. Like, you know what, though? It's got a lot of golden linings hidden away.
Charlie really wants to just put his head on the laptop there.
2020, it's been a real shit fest. But, like, there's a couple of golden linings that, like, you can find if you look for them. Like, pollution's been down because there's less traffic. Thousands of companies and employees are discovering that, like, you can totally work from home in your pajamas and get work done. But, most importantly, somewhere out there, kids are going to run up to a fucking Halloween robot and receive king-size peanut butter cups from it. And that is a beautiful thing that almost makes the millions of deaths worth it. Almost. Note that I said almost there. Not quite worth the trade, not quite all the deaths, but please don't hashtag cancel us. It's too soon for that. And that about wraps it up for today's main course. I hope you guys all saved room, as always, for some dessert. Wow. This episode's finally shaping up to be a little bit shorter than the last few, because the last few were just like hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. Like, they keep ticking up.
Yeah.
I don't know, but, like, from what we've heard, people like the research. People like hearing all the wacky, dumb history about dumb foods. So I don't know. It's
the part to be like.
Yeah. It's good to, we've been breaking these down into sections and, like, uploading them separately on YouTube lately, so if you want to learn about the history of food, but you don't have fucking 90 minutes to devote to it, you can at least watch little snippets, like 20 minutes here and there. So, let us know if you have any feedback about that. Feel free to tell us to go fuck off if you don't like that. But, that brings us to today's episode's dessert, which we're going to be doing Poor Taste. So Poor Taste is a relatively newer a relatively new addition to Poor Couples Food Guide Deep Dish. Basically, Poor Taste is where we take a look at food news, events, stories, and other reports that just plain left a bad taste in our mouths. We live in the age of information, and it's never been easier to find out just how many stupid people are out there, especially when it comes to food. So, we'll give you a rundown of any number of topics, usually culinary ones, that we found to be cringe-inducing, truly bizarre, or just generally in poor taste. Here we go!
So for this episode, we tried to stick with Halloween theme, and so these are all candy or Halloween related. The our first article is this is actually from last month now.
So old in
know.
internet years.
I know.
September 25th.
Yeah, the headline is "Man dies after eating bags of black licorice every day."
What the hell?
But yeah,
I have questions here.
Yeah.
I got a lot of questions.
Apparently, though, licorice contains a compound known to be toxic in large doses, which just underlines the fact that black licorice fucking sucks and no one should eat it.
Don't eat black licorice. Black licorice is garbage. It's disgusting. There's not a lot of foods out there that are black that you're like, oh boy, let's eat that.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently he was
54-year-old Massachusetts man.
He was Oh yeah, he was consuming 1 to 2 large packages of soft candy every day and little else. A few weeks earlier, he'd switched from eating red licorice to black licorice, and that was apparently his downfall.
Oh no! See, you switch over from the strawberry candy one to the tablet down. You switch over from the red licorice, strawberry flavor, to the fucking garbage squid ink licorice, and it kills you.
Yeah,
that stuff will kill you. Apparently, he was at a fast food restaurant when he suddenly gasped and began shaking and lost consciousness, according to this report.
How much was the restaurant sweating that it was their food that caused this?
They're like, oh, fuck. We're going to get sued. And then they saw this and they're just like, local man dies from Oh, yeah! Yes! I mean, it sucks the guy's dead, but yeah! We didn't kill him, thank God. Who'd have thunk, if you're at a fast food restaurant, everyone around who was probably oh, that man's having a heart attack because he ate too many Big Macs.
Yeah.
And, hey, lesson here, though. Black licorice is disgusting and will kill you. If you eat black licorice, you'll die. Don't eat it. Let's move on to the next one here.
It's easier for you.
So, we have an article from Pop Sugar that is all about candy sticking, which is an even safer and far cuter version of leaving out trick-or-treat candy on Halloween night.
Yeah, so basically, this idea is instead of opening the door to little children who can cough on you and give you COVID, and a lot of people will probably leave out bowls. But no, that's not good enough either. What you gotta do is you gotta take the candy that you're giving out and put it on sticks. And then stick those sticks in your yard so that dogs can walk by and pee on them. And then children can come take them and eat them.
Oh, I'm looking at the picture and this is really based. So picture a lawn and the lawn has just a bunch of lollipops, just 50 lollipops or just chocolate bars with fucking sticks in them, and they're just spaced apart here, all over the lawn. This is so stupid. Who has the time to do that?
I don't know. And even then it's been dubbed candy sticking. That's even a stupid name.
Yeah. Here, what I don't get, how is this safer than just putting a bowl out?
I guess because less people touching the candy, but I said, now you have animals that can just come and nibble on them or pee on them. Plus, people are gonna step on them.
I don't know, any kid that, if you're worried about kids touching the whole bowl, I got news for you. Kids are gonna go around and they're gonna touch every single one of those freaking pieces of candy too. Honestly, some kid is gonna walk over and the same douchebag that just dumps the whole bowl into their pillow sack is gonna just stand there and go bink, 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 I got them all, and they're gonna take all of them. So like the friggin' like 45 minutes it took you to set this stupid shit up, someone's gonna just like rip it all out and take it and steal it in like 5 minutes, if even, not even a minute.
And then is everyone who does this going to go through at the end of the night and like pick up any candy that hasn't been taken, so they're not littering or like poisoning like wild animals who come through later?
It's okay. Like, I know like COVID and like the pandemic is worse in different parts of the world and different parts of the country. But like, we're very fortunate here in New York that like our numbers are still pretty low, and like no one has like stood up and be like, no trick-or-treating anymore, even though like people absolutely still would after my rant before. But like other places, there are a lot of places where like their hospitals are still really full and all this like shit that's like, actually scary and not just like I'm wearing a Frankenstein mask. But yeah, like for places like that, like what is the actual risk in trick-or-treating? Like, I'm not a doctor. I used to be an EMT. I'm a retired EMT, so I have a little bit of medical training, but like I'm not an epidemiologist, but I understand data and studies and shit that I read. So as far as I can tell, it seems like the real risk is that it's airborne and shit. So if you're standing in a room and breathing shit in when people are coughing and fucking peeing and shitting and all over the place, I don't know why they've been doing that, but like if you have coronavirus and they're doing that, stay far away, even if they don't have coronavirus. But like that's the real risk, is that if someone coughs, it can just fly around. But so like regardless of that, even if you're like, oh, I'm worried about like I don't know, like if kids come to your door, like first of all, don't bring them into your house, and second of all, like any kid that comes into your house, that works both ways. Like if kids are going into strangers' houses and you're worried about them getting coronavirus in the house, like you got bigger problems if that kid's going to a stranger's house. But then similarly, on the other end of things, if you're an adult and kids come trick-or-treating and you bring them into your house, like you got bigger problems than if that kid is going to like transmit COVID into your house. So like I don't like just
basically, if like the doorbell rings, don't cough into people's face.
Yeah.
And alternately, if they look like they're about to cough, close the door in their face.
Just like you can do the 6 foot thing. Honestly, turn it into a game. You know, it'd be more fun than friggin' just wasting time dinking a bunch of stupid like candy into your lawn. Here's what you do: you say, "All right, kids, open those pillow sacks up," and you go boo, and you toss them in like friggin' like ring toss or skee ball, and just chuck them in. And like I don't know. If you don't make it into the pillow sack, you know what's going to happen? The kid's going to bend down, pick it up, and put it in anyway, because kids want friggin' candy. That's what they're there for. I would be shocked. I'd be absolutely shocked if anyone gets coronavirus just from trick-or-treating, as long as it's trick-or-treating outdoors. Ugh.
If I walked up to a house and saw this menagerie of candy just stuck in the lawn, I would be like, what the fuck? I don't even know if I would take the candy. I would just honestly, be like, what is this?
Yeah,
and like leave.
I might just be like, that's kind of creepy and not fun creepy. It just kind of looks like the kind of creepy, like it looks like...
I would think there's something mentally wrong with the person who lives
here's
there.
What I think. If I were a kid, I would be like, ooh, a serial killer and like a pedophile lives in that house, and he's like waiting. That's the trap. That's the trap they set. And then we see the kids like bending down, like, do I want a Kit Kat or do I want a Twix? They leap out and they're like, haha, and they put them into a big bag and they sling it over their back and they run back into their pedo van and vroom, they take off. Let's take a look at the last one. So this final article comes from some local radio station, KRMS. I don't know where the hell it is.
Sorry, I just got really distracted because I noticed the tablet browser has like a million tabs open.
So this final article comes to us saying Pulaski Sheriff's Office advises residents to check Halloween candy. And this kind of piggybacks off of what we were just complaining about. Basically, this sheriff's office is, they're just put out like a PSA being like, parents, like, they should always check their candy before children consume it, but like it's especially like important to check it this year because this year a deputy found marijuana edibles that mimicked popular candy.
Oh, whoa. No, not the marijuanas.
No, how many marijuanas do you think they crammed into that Reese's peanut butter cup? This is so bizarre. It says some of the candy that resembled edibles was Skittles and Gushers. It's just like, first of all, like the whole notion of like check your candy, it might have razor blades and it might have drugs and it might have coronavirus, and like that's like one of the biggest myths in like the last century. Like if you look it up, there's like virtually no instances of kids getting sick from like candy that's been tampered with.
Yeah, if anything, they just get sick from eating too much fucking candy at one
sitting.
sitting.
That's the bigger problem. Like, there's like, I'm looking up to like fact check this right now. Like, there's a handful of cases ever in history, and even then, most of them were found with they're like children that got the candy from a relative, like their like estranged like father or something, or some relative that was mad at the kid. There was also someone laced candies with laxatives, which that's actually
a prank.
That's just funny. That's a prank, bro. But like, there's no historical like there's no instance in history of Halloween of a kid getting seriously sick or hurt or anything from eating like tampered candy. It's like, this is just bizarre. This is just like, ugh.
Like, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm no like expert, but like, if your kid like ends up eating an edible, like, they're just gonna like want some more food and go to bed, right? Like, I don't think it's like that huge of a deal. It's not like if it was like poison.
Yeah, like there's difference between like marijuana and Drano, for example. Your kid's just gonna be like
if the person's handing out Tide Pods, then that's bad.
That's a bigger problem. I'm surprised that hasn't been a thing, like with all the Tide Pod outrage. But again, this goes back to what I was saying with coronavirus. It's like, if you get candy that is open, don't eat it.
Yeah.
Like, no one can sneak fucking marijuana edible like Gushers or whatever into a whole unopened package of Gushers.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen. Like,
and if you get a package of Skittles where it's like Skittles is spelled with like 3 Z's, that's not real Skittles. Don't eat that, children.
Then you know it's not good. Then, it's just like, I don't know. Like, there's parents, like, honestly, my parents never even checked my candy after I was like 6, I think. I think they were just like, if anything's open, throw it out.
Yeah, I feel like similar. Maybe, like, honestly, I feel like my parents would go through my candy more to see, like, if there was anything, like, they wanted.
Yeah, like,
that, like, like, they could take.
Oh, I don't know. This king size Twix. Oh, with 4 Twix bars in it. I don't know. This looks like it's got a hole. We're gonna have to take this. We'll take this and get rid of it. And they're just.
I almost feel like one time, I remember last episode, we spoke about those shitty, like, peanut butter candies and the, like, black and orange wrappers. I almost feel like one time I ate one and I was like, oh no, this tastes bad, Mom. I think this candy was, like, do you think this was, like, poison? She was like, no, this is how they taste.
Yeah, those are just bad candies. Yeah, I can't imagine any parents don't like doing things with their kids most of the time. So I can't imagine any parent just being like, all right, kid, you got like 270 pieces of small candy. I am going to go over every single one, and I'm going to closely investigate it to make sure there are no small holes on them. Nobody does that. Like I said, like, I think once your kid is like old enough to like go out by themselves, like, you don't have to check their candy because they're smart enough to do it on their own. And if you're going with them, you could tell if a candy you got from like a crack house is not worth it. You'll just slap it away. Be like, no, don't have that, Billy. It just be smart and don't be stupid. And you're not going to be the first person to die from Halloween candy. So with that, we're all set here. Check, please. That should wrap it up for this week's edition of Poor Couples Food Guide Deep Dish Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's Halloween Spooktacular edition, which wasn't actually all that spooky unless you just think about how stupid people are, and that's what's really spooky.
It's so scary, the horror!
Remember, we are in fact the only podcast left where you're more likely to learn about cereal than serial killers.
Search recipes, cooking tips, and other cool stuff on our website, poorcouplesfoodguide.com. And don't forget, you can always write into us at mail@poorcouplesfoodguide.com to ask for any food advice that you may need.
You can also send in any comments, feedback, criticism, hate mail, love mail, chain letters, postcards, Halloween cards, and whatever random pondering should pass your mind. Once again, that's mail@poorcouplesfoodguide.com. Or if you like, you can hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram as well.
While you're at it, try and give us some ratings and reviews on whatever platform you're using. It really helps us gain exposure, which is great while we try to help Deep Dish's audience grow. Or if you're on YouTube, please give us a like, and if you haven't, scare that subscribe button to death. You changed that as I was reading it.
Sorry, we have to make this the spooky edition. We are a few days out from Halloween, so because of that, hope all you have a happy Halloween, happy trick-or-treating, happy parties, and whatever you do, don't fall off a chair like Charlie just did. Until then, we bid you a good day and good eat, so stay hungry and keep feeding that brain.
And tummy.
Here's me talking. Here's me talking. Here's me talking. Do you think anyone likes the sound of their voice so much that they just walk around going, here's me talking?
Maybe.